I'm Tasha Pierce, your not so mild mannered mask MC, and this is After the Snap. Today I'm here to give my thoughts on Captain Marvel, the movie, not just the character. So, leading up to Captain Marvel's release, I had a few things that I really wanted this movie to achieve. In fact, I needed this movie to achieve. Thing number one was be a solid entry into the MCU. By that I meant attract a large and diverse audience, earn, which is always important with a movie opening, and be true to the time period that they chose to set this movie in. And I feel like those three things were pretty much accomplished. I mean, the earning is probably the easiest and most quantifiable thing. You can quantify earning, and we know that $150 million and $450 million worldwide is a rousing success. The time period that they chose was the 1990s, and I could actually see the 90s aesthetic. In fact, I'm not afraid to say that I was in my 20s in the early 90s, and I did get the same vibe. I got the vibe of being in my 20s again, all the way from just the set pieces, the music that was chosen for her soundtrack, background music, and some of the dialogue. There were a lot of people who had an issue with, like the guy on the bike, and we are getting into some mild spoiler territory. I'm not trying to like blow the entire movie for you, but there will be spoilers. There are spoilers. So, like the guy on the bike when he said, "Give me a smile." There are people who are like, "Oh, guys don't talk like that," because they felt like the movie was trying to portray men in a negative way. I beg to differ. In the 90s, that was a very popular thing. When a man didn't know what to say to a woman that he was considering attractive, he would say something like that, especially if I'm walking with a blank face. And now I'm taking it back to me. If I'm walking and I don't have an expression on my face, oh, smile, baby, it can't be that bad. I feel like if you were a woman in the 90s, you know that these things happen. In fact, I was at work yesterday and a guy was like, "You ain't gonna give me a smile? Are you serious?" I mean, we are still, and I thought about it and kind of chuckled, like they're still doing this in 2019. So I feel like in this initial category, be a solid entry into the MCU, she did good. She passed. Okay. The next thing that I wanted Captain Marvel to do, in fact, needed Captain Marvel to do, was tie back to old storylines. I needed Captain Marvel to be relevant to the entire story that the MCU was telling, all the way back from Iron Man, bringing us up to Endgame. I needed her to be relevant. And guess what? The writers and directors were able to achieve that as well. We saw some callbacks to the Tesseract. In fact, I'm going to put a little graphic. I guess I'll put it right here. Like right here. I'll put a little graphic really quick. In this graphic, it tells you all the ways that there was a callback or a tie back to something previously from the MCU. Blink and you'll miss it. I don't want to spoil a whole bunch for people. So we did see the introduction to a pretty powerful relic, and we saw mention of Project Pegasus, and I don't think that's a huge spoiler. So, did Captain Marvel successfully, to me, tie back to older storylines? Yes. So now we've got 2 check marks for Captain Marvel, which is great. Okay. The third thing that I wanted Captain Marvel to do was set up Avengers Endgame. Show how she would fit in to that greater story, because where the hell was she for the whole of Infinity War? We could have used her ass here to fight Thanos, but How is she going to fit in to the end game picture? Okay, so we got, without me jumping into complete spoiler territory, we got a mid-credit scene that kind of tied that up for us. And we also, in that mid-credit scene, I'm about to drop a huge one. We saw a bearded Captain America, which lets us put a time perspective on when we will see Captain Marvel. So, did Captain Marvel, the movie, the writers, directors, did they achieve setting up Avengers Endgame? Yes, they absolutely did. So I'm floating on cloud 9 right now because of my 4 very important things. Captain Marvel has already checked off 3. This is great. I'm happy. Let's jump into thing number 4. Thing number 4 that was important to me, that would be one of my huge expectations for Captain Marvel, the character, was to be compatible with the existing cast of the MCU. Because over the last 10 years, we can say 9 because of the whole Edward Norton and what was the one that played Rhodey? Terrence Howard thing. But once we got past that little debacle, the casting has been solid. In fact, Marvel has done its casting keeping in mind that they want to have a certain type of chemistry between characters. So my final check mark on my list to make Captain Marvel just the best of the best, the creme de la creme of Marvel movies, is did it or will she be compatible with the existing cast? And this is where I'm uncertain, because there have been a lot of complaints about Brie Larson acting rather wooden in Captain Marvel. Now, I don't think I would go so far as to call her acting wooden, but I will say that she lacked kind of the kind of verve that I would kind of expect to see from a member of the cast of in an MCU movie. I expect to see a little more animation, and maybe it's because it's easy to compare her to the other characters in the MCU, but because she played that role so straight, because she was so stoic, it makes me wonder, when you put her next to a Robert Downey Jr. who likes to improv, he likes to ad lib, he likes to go off script, and he's sharp as a tack. When you put her with him, how will she measure up? Will she be able to give the type of performance that is required to not just fade away? She's one of the most powerful characters, if not the most powerful character in the MCU to date. Do we want her to just shrink back into the background? Absolutely not. We want her to be able to go toe-to-toe with Tony Stark or a character like him. With Ant-Man or a character like him. So I'm saying that because of her, I guess, like I said before, her straight approach to this character. Even when she was being funny, it was kind of like a dry sarcasm, which is nothing wrong with that. That's the type of humor that I subscribe to. So I am sarcastic and I am kind of dry. So it's not that I feel like there's something wrong with that type of humor. It's only something wrong with that type of humor, I think, in this setting with the cast as they exist right now. That's male and female. because we've already got the kind of serious, we got Black Widow, and she's been through a lot, but she can be funny now. So let's not get that twisted. Black Widow is funny, but if her humor is even close to what Captain Marvel's humor would be, then how do we differentiate between those two characters? What is the difference? And then, if you really think about it, maybe she won't have to be. Perhaps we will be losing much of the old cast who was the core group that Marvel would do their casting around. Maybe we're about to lose enough of them where we'll be starting over. Our core cast will turn into, say, Tom Holland, Brie Larson, and Chadwick Boseman. So if that's the case, then those are the personalities that we need to get used to. That would be the new MCU. So this is where there's some uncertainty. I can't say that she checks off in that area. Things that I did not like about the movie. Because, I mean, all of those things were positive, right? So I'm going to give you my one negative, and the one thing that what made me did not particularly like this movie more. I liked it. Wasn't my favorite MCU introduction story, but I did like the movie. I did not like the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie. I felt like it was far too much. Let's explain this to them because they might not understand. I know that there are people in the audience besides me who I have been to all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, much like many of you. We are those kind of fans. Read the comic books, all of that. So we're invested. The movie knows that we're gonna be in those seats. Then there are the people that they are attracting to make a new audience, to bring in new fans, to make new money. but okay, so if you feel like you need to talk down to this audience, I just don't feel like that part was necessary. This is a new character to all of us. So the talking down is what I didn't like. We're going to explain every damn thing, and we're going to do it all really quick because we got to put as much exposition as we possibly can fit in this scene, I didn't like that. And it happened at the beginning of the movie. So at the beginning of the movie, you're already taking me to a point where I'm like, you really thought you had to tell me? Show emotion. I mean, not show emotion. Suppress your emotion. You're telling me, so you're saying suppress your emotion because there are so many people. I'm pretty sure that scene was added. There are so many people that were saying, why doesn't she smile more? Again, this is just a ridiculous request that just because she's a woman, she has to be a Stepford wife. How many Stepford wife superheroes do we need? We don't need any, So I think that was added in there because she is such a straight actress that they were like, okay, we have to come up with a reason for why she's not smiling. So suppress your emotion. Why? Why did, I know that if they're saying that these powers were tied to emotions, whatever. It was too much exposition. I didn't like that. They don't normally do that right off the bat in an MCU movie. You will get some explaining, and I don't like that sometimes. I understand. We have to explain some things to the audience who hasn't been there for the whole ride. This is the only ride they want to go on. They don't want to go on the whole ride. They don't want to try the whole theme park just yet. This is the ride they're on. So let's explain some things to them. I get it. I didn't like it right at the beginning of the movie. It kind of like took me out for a few minutes because I felt like, oh my God, is this going to be one of those movies? And it turned out not to be. It turned out to be a very good movie. I loved the interactions between Samuel L. Jackson and Brie Larson. I thought they had a good straight man and the comedy piece, as in Nick Fury to Captain Marvel. I liked that. I enjoyed what they put as a relationship between the Lashana Lynch character, Maria Rambeau, and Carol Danvers. Their friendship, I liked that dynamic. The little girl who played Monica Rambeau was delightful. I enjoyed her immensely, and we know what implications the name Monica Rambeau has for the MCU, so I'm going to wait for that because I can't wait to see what they do with that. It would have to be sometime soon because the girl would have to be 30 something now. I mean, so really, Lashana Lynch's character, the mother, Maria, would have to be a lot older, but the little girl would at least have to be 35 years old, present day. So I would love to see what they do with that in the future. So there are a lot of things to like. That big thing to me to dislike was the explaining nature of some of the scenes. We're going to explain this to you in backbreaking detail because we don't think you'll understand. I didn't like that. I didn't find the movie overtly political. There were some political references, as there are in most popular movies. We've heard the words fake news said in I believe it was in the MCU. So to hear the word shithole as it talking about Earth, I think that people that are getting upset about that and saying that that is an issue, I think they're reaching. I think they're reaching because that has always been a part of pop culture, especially when we have characters in Washington like we have right now. It is like, wow, this is going to be something that we're going to really, really be talking about. If I'm still here in 20 years, this is going to be a good laugh. Washington, the state of Washington right now is funny. If nothing else, it's hilarious. I mean, I know in some instances or whatever, it can be scary, but right now, let's look at the comedic value of what goes on in Washington right now. So, to poke fun at that, I think that's to be expected. It's to be expected. And that's without showing any political leanings. The underlying story could be considered super political, it can be aggravating to people who have an issue. You know what? It's just too easy for me to go into this in this video. I'm going to give people a little bit more opportunity to see this movie before I go into the political message, because I'd like for them to get that on their own. I don't want to feel like the way Marvel made me feel at the beginning of the movie, like I'm telling you what's about to happen instead of you figuring it out for yourselves. So if you haven't seen the movie, please go see the movie. It is a good movie. It's not terrible. It's not the best Marvel movie ever either. There are people who this is their first Marvel movie. This might be their favorite and their best and the best to them. To me, it's just a solid entry. It's just a solid entry. And on a scale from 1 to 5, like I do on my podcast. So on the podcast, I rate movies 1 to 5. 1 being I will never tell anybody to go see this movie. And 5 being I'm telling everybody I know go see this movie. This movie is a 3.75 on the 5-point scale. Not a bad movie. Not the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm Tasha Pierce. I will catch you in the next one. Catch you on the flip.